Hello, my awesome friends. Thank you for tuning in to part 2 of The Experiment. Now, last week we showed you our exciting experiment out on Table Rock Lake where we scientifically proved the Earth is round. This week it's time to debrief my 4 teammates and get their firsthand observations, reactions, and stories. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to stop by the store at theryanfiles.com and pick up one of our commemorative souvenir mugs from our episode 37 Round Earth Experiment. So let's dive in, folks. It's time to debrief the team from the experiment.
Are you not curious? Who is this man? This enigma? Yes, a man of many talents, but he is a glitch in the system. He spends his nights scouring texts for traces of lost knowledge. We dare not stand by and turn a blind eye to this man speaking on a public forum. It is all in the files. I present to you on this day the Ryan Files.
For those of you that understood all the calculations, great. I wanted to be as thorough as possible. For those of you that didn't understand a single thing I said, let me simplify our findings. Our Earth, my friends, is not flat. And it appears to be curved to the degree we expected, which means that you, my friends, live on a planet that is 24,902 miles in circumference. In closing, I wanted to note a few more observations that were made specifically from Shoreline B. When we were firing the laser on Shoreline A, it felt like it was always about level to the water surface or pointed down according to our eyes. But check out this video from Shoreline B. It clearly looks like the laser is pointed upwards. This could only happen if there was a drop between the 2 points from the perspective of each location's horizon. And while this wasn't measured but just observed, for me, it just further confirms that we live on a round Earth. So let's meet up with the amazing people who were on this fun scientific expedition. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Michael Junge, Sean Barker, Justin Sassanella, and Clint Nievar. Michael Junge. All right, so Michael, you were on Shoreline A with me during this experiment, and I appreciate you coming out, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I enjoyed myself going out there and actually, doing a test instead of just watching other people's videos, and it was pretty fun. Definitely took a lot longer than what I think all of us thought it was going to take. We thought it was going to be firing a laser beam and we were going to get a result quick, but we were fighting daylight, then we were fighting boats, then we were fighting bugs flying across the laser. We were fighting it all. But it was pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I think they had it worse on Shoreline B because we were asking them to shine the light on the balloon to help us locate the target, and the bugs were everywhere. But I'll tell you what a great time. And I want to just tell the folks out there, this is something I appreciate about you as a human being. Nothing beside that. Michael, you, I can get, and I know this, I can get very intense because I get blinders on and I get focused.
Yep.
And you, during the experiment, you say, hey man, just relax. We're out here by the lake. We're having some fun. It's awesome. And I appreciate that, man. That's something I need to be reminded of. And thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I know that you had a lot more invested in it financially than any of us. So, and all of us went into it with an open mind, but at the same time, for me, it was like, we talked about it before. I've watched all kinds of videos, and the idea of what we were out there testing is probably one of the most fascinating conspiracies that I've ever actually looked into, but most of it was just, it's seeing other people do tests, and you don't know what's real and what's not. So to actually put somebody's money where their mouth was and us go out there, it was super fun, man.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, Michael, and listen, it had nothing to do with the money on the line. It had the money is secondary by far to the knowledge of knowing, being able to say, listen, I don't have to take your word. I don't have to take your word. And so that, and that's worth far more than any kind of amount of money. So I know that we went into this, and I know that you have your thoughts about NASA, and I don't, I totally understand why. To what degree you were a quote unquote flat earther, let me ask you, and just, be honest.
Yeah. So for me, just looking at videos online, I talked a little bit on that podcast that when you came into the shop, and it's like, I've never said 100% that I know that it is, but like the more you look into anything, it's like, oh, well, that's pretty convincing. This is, that's super convincing. And then with the NASA thing, that got me into, looking into the moon landing. And then for me, it was like, okay, well, this seems pretty bogus. And if we didn't go there and they're lying about that, what else are they lying about? And I was that test that we did, because I have looked at it for so many years now and just kind of got it in my head that like, oh, dude, what if we are living on a flat plane? But then to actually get to go out there and shoot a laser and be like, okay, like if this is the math and we're seeing it, there's, what is it? Cognitive dissonance. Like, I feel like I can accuse other people of that, but then also like going so far down that rabbit hole and looking at this and like, getting in this headspace that like, dude, I'm pretty convinced that maybe we are living on a flat plane at this point after, years of looking at the evidence that other people have brought up, or arguments that actually make, in a lot of ways, more sense than math that I'm never going to be able to do. So to do it, it was cool. And I went back, not with my tail between my legs, but I definitely was like, well, I guess I don't know. I mean, I thought I was starting to go one direction, and then after doing that, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, Michael, because this is the point. We all grew up being educated, being told that we live on a round Earth.
Absolutely.
And, if you think about that, if you would have grown up and they told you that, hey, the Earth is made of Swiss cheese, that's what you would have believed. And so when I first heard about these flat Earth arguments, I was kind of like, no, that can't be.
Yeah.
And what turned me to investigate this more than the concept of flat Earth itself was the people online who just wanted to make fun of it and not use a logical argument based upon facts to discredit it, but rather than just to, clickbait. I'm going to get, a million hits on this video because I'm in the in crowd. Yeah. And there's nothing more in life that just irks me than that. So that's why I did the experiment. Looking into flat Earth, there's some compelling stuff about the argument. Yeah. And I would never hold anyone who thinks it's flat. I would never scoff at them, because there are some very compelling facts. Yeah. If you look at it with an open mind. Yeah. And I feel just honored, actually, that you came out on this experiment. We were there together. We were able to, a couple things, we were able to, number one, bingo the balloon, which was huge. Yeah. We were able to mathematically compensate for our laser parallelism from one side to the other. We were able to see atmospheric refraction in a video at work. And, you know, all these things combined. What was really exciting is that, and I appreciate my buddy John Jeffers, the engineer, who helped me through some of this, but what we were able to do is do the math in advance and then see the results based upon those calculations, based upon around Earth. Now, Michael, we proved the Earth is round. However, there are some points about around Earth that, you know, maybe we just need to contemplate and think about what it is, because I believe in the Bible, and the Bible says there's a firmament. What is that then? Do I believe everything that NASA has said? No, I don't. And, you know, just like the recent struggles to land a craft on the moon, let alone multiple times with people and everything else, is, you know, a demonstration of that. And guess what? Sue me, but I think it's worth investigating and asking questions, because if we could do it in 1969 and beyond, why can't we do it today? What happened to the math calculations of all the flight, all that stuff? Like, I get it, but in moving forward, I feel like I can say with the utmost of honesty, we live on around Earth.
Yeah. I think I think the hardest part for me is everything you just said. Is like when you look into certain things and you feel like you've been lied to about one thing, to then, you know, that's what sends you on the rabbit trail or the rabbit hole, going down and like looking into all this stuff. And it's beyond even the subject that we're talking about right now. It's just like, I wish I could trust what my government is telling me, because I feel like they use, you know, science in a lot of ways. If it advances their argument, then this is what the scientist says, and then as soon as it doesn't, then it's like it shifts. And so it's like this which I realize, like, I realize the argument of like, oh, well, there's new science for certain things, but it just seems too convenient a lot of the times. And that's where I think anybody with an open mind, and again, I talked about that when we did that podcast together, is I don't know, I feel like science has become its own religion. And if it's not set in stone, you can change it on a whim to whatever advances your agenda, then it's like, is it really science, or is it its own religion that's not written down and factual? And I don't know, man, like this is it. Doing that test, it was definitely eye-opening and cool for me. And, you know, like you were talking about the firmament and the Bible, I'll be honest, like whenever I first started looking at flat earth stuff, one of my first questions was like, well, if it was, would this make the Bible not true? Because I had grown up the same as everybody did, and it's like everybody in our generation that it was a ball. And so would that like take me further away from God? And the more years I've gone on looking into it, it actually did the opposite for me. It brought God a lot closer, because instead of, you know, you look at the universe and ever expanding galaxy and something that's flying through space at thousands of miles an hour, and then you think about this stationary thing that God is like right there. It actually, in a way, made me, I made literally physically feel closer to God. And so in everything else, I'm not saying that I don't think it being a ball takes away from, you know, my belief in God. I believed in God before, whenever I thought it was, but moving forward, it's like which is weird to say because I've never like definitively said like I know the Earth is flat, because I don't know. Like I don't know that the Earth is a ball. I won't know until I'm, if I was in a spaceship and I was actually out beyond looking down on it, do I feel like, I would have to trust the people that are telling me that they've actually done that. And again, that's what really got me into it, is that as soon as you look into NASA and the moon landing, it's like I don't believe it. I don't believe that we've landed on the moon, or at least we didn't in the 60s. If we can't do that again, then how are we on Mars? Like all these other things that we're doing. So I don't know. All this stuff is awesome, and I have talked more with clients about this experiment that I got to do, because I felt like we got to go out and actually, like I said, put your money where your mouth is, or get to do science. Like it was cool to me. Like that was probably the most fun I've had in a while, being around other somewhat crazy, like-minded people that were like, hey, let's try to figure this thing out. And it was.
Hey, my favorite part is you, the entire time that we were on that shore, trying to tell me to, just put the laser on the Branson Bell. Come on, man. Come on.
I was joking with the guys the next day about, I said, did you guys hear on the news that the Branson Bell wrecked into the dam last night? No, are you serious? I was like, yeah, somebody with a laser, I think, hit the captain in the eyes. The thing went haywire, and it definitely wasn't from us, though.
It is so funny because the whole time, and I like watched all the video, and you're just like, come on, man, just put it on the Branson Bell. And I sound like such a goody two shoe, because I'm thinking, no, we got to do this experiment. We're out here, we got to do it. But you're just, it's awesome.
I was a few beers in too, so I was feeling pretty loose.
Well, listen, man, I will say this in closing, and I appreciate you coming on. This is where I'm excited, okay? Because boots on ground, and I've seen more than you, because at this point in the episode, you're just now.
Yeah, I still haven't seen.
Yeah, you haven't seen all the evidence, but I can tell you this: I'm excited because I feel like we can say a few things. We can say the Earth is round. And we can step back and look at the division caused by this flat Earth, round Earth thing. Okay.
Hollow Earth, cucumber Earth.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting, I find, is that oftentimes when there is such a black and white conflict, it was a design conflict. And it was a design conflict to keep us separated, to be focused on that versus the actual real gold. And so I'm excited, because moving forward, I don't have to question that anymore. And I can look at, well, what possibly could benefit an agenda by having one side versus the other about this, when the real truth is here. So I'm excited about that fact, and we'll see. I'm starting already to dive into some research, and we'll certainly talk about it moving forward. But man, I cannot thank you enough. You're awesome. And you taught me a little lesson, man. Enjoy life. It's not long. I thank you for that.
I appreciate you having me on and getting to go out there and do that. And if there's ever any other crazy experiments, definitely I'm into it. But that was the mother of all conspiracies to get to look at. So I don't know. You're gonna have to send me some more good conspiracies to look into, because that's been a fascination of mine for a minute.
We'll get there. I promise. And when we do, you'll be the first person I call. Okay.
All right, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only owner of the Lost Boys Barbershop in Hollister, Missouri, Michael Junge. Thank you.
Thank you, dude.
Justin Sassanella.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as Elwood Blues from the Blues Brothers at Legends in Concert, but he joined us on this experiment. He's been on the program before, but ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Mr. Justin Sassanella.
Appreciate you, Mike.
Yep. thank you so much, man, for joining us on this little expedition. It was kind of crazy that how it all came together, and you, Sean, and Clint being on that shoreline. Number one, I would have loved to just been a fly on the wall back there, because you three together had to be hilarious. Then a deer shows up. It's just like, you can't write this stuff, you know. And you guys did an amazing job. You had a lot of gear to huff down there, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
It was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for the invite. Yes, you had us very well equipped and well prepared, as you do. And luckily, the three of us could figure out what one of you would hope that we would figure out. So that was a lot of fun, and we worked well together, and it was a much cooler experience than I thought it was going to be heading into it.
Except for the bugs, right? There was serious bugs. You guys... Yeah.
But leave it Brian Pelton to have a can of Deep Woods Off spray and our fanny packs ready to go for us. So we might have had bugs all around us, but the bites were minimal the next day. So thank you, Ryan.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So going into this experiment, you know, I know that like Michael Junge is, you know, more on the flat earth side. I certainly know that Clint Nievar is on the skeptical side. We live on a ball. What about you?
Honestly, I had never even heard of the flat earth theory until a few years ago. And I think it was maybe you guys that brought it up, or maybe it was the guys at Lost Boys who had brought it up, asked me about it. I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? So as I do, I like to research things on my own and come to my own conclusion. So I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago, kind of dug into it, read some things, watched some things, and there was probably about a 72-hour window where I was like, oh my gosh, there might be something to this. And you know, I started getting a little sweaty there, and he kept on doing some more research and heard some of the rebuttals and saw some of the experiments to prove it one way or the other. And so I kind of left that in the past for me, thinking that it was definitely not flat. But obviously there's other ideas that go along with it, not necessarily just that it's flat, but there's other things that maybe are about our world and what we live on, maybe not being exactly what we've been taught. And I'm still leaning towards that. But as far as the flat earth goes, going into it, I was not expecting it to be proven other than globe.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, it's really hard to wrap your head around the reality of, we were brought up with a globe. Mm-hmm. We were also brought up with, like, you know, being taught that these people in the, you know, 14, 15, 1600s were, you know, idiots because they thought that Christopher Columbus might sail off the globe. You know? Yeah. And so, you know, we were, you know, brought up with that in our mind. And it's interesting to think about, you know, we are kind of a product of what we've been taught or told. You know what I mean?
100%.
And I talked about,
there's so many things when you reflect on your life, especially a little older in life, things that you just took for face value and then just never really thought another thing about them, because why would we need to? Because people that we were told to trust taught us these things.
Right. And that's kind of the point, Justin, is that we were brought up this way. There are people that were brought up maybe in the 1500s another way. And some of those people changed their mind and thought it's not flat, it's round, and were burnt at the stake. That's a big deal. And just kind of with that in my mind, I thought, you know, there's enough factor to this whole thing. Did I ever believe that it was other than round? No. But there was enough like questions, and it was interesting talking to Michael, as Michael just said, you know, I think that maybe we're looking at a situation where this is a division point that might be out there just to obscure the real truth that's up here?
Why is it such a big deal that we would even have a conversation about it? You know what I mean? It shouldn't be. We should be able to have a conversation about it and laugh about it. And, you know, freedom of speech, we could go out all day and say, hey, we're on a flat earth. We're allowed to do that. But there's such a pushback, and there's been such a pushback against this community. It makes you go, why? If these people are idiots, let them be idiots.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of idiots in this world.
And I don't consider them idiots, because I've seen the other side of it, and like I can sit in there certain things I can be like, hey, which is why part of the reason why I wanted to do this experiment. Like, let's not take someone else's word on it. And I'll tell you, there's been some really compelling people on both sides of the argument that I've listened to. Why take this side or that side when you can just test it?
And kudos to you for doing that. You spent the money to get the supplies to be able to do it in a way that 5 guys could, given where we're at, to, you know, put maybe a pin on it the best that we can with what we're capable of doing. So I think that's awesome that you wanted to go for it. And it's one of the very first things you mentioned when you started talking about your podcast. And I know it's been in the works, and man, it was awesome. You did a great job. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, the exciting part of it is we can walk away. I can say this for myself. I can walk away from this experiment and say, okay, it's off the table. Now, the firmament and all these other things, yes, those are other questions. Okay. But in terms of the Earth, it's a sphere.
It's curved.
Yeah. So, yeah. And there's all kinds of other, you know, we just opened the box to Pandora's next box, because there's so many other things. But for this episode, so tell me some of your observations on Shoreline B. You guys were there. It's so interesting, man. It's so interesting. And you caught some of the video in the dressing room as I'm editing this. But Michael and I were always under the impression that our laser was level or pointing down.
Yeah.
We never had the perspective whatsoever from what we saw in the video from your side that it was pointing up. And obviously that's only created when there's a curve down.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting, man. Like the two perspectives. I was so excited to see your video on your side, because immediately I was like, wow, that is massive. And it's only 5.54 miles away, but it was massive. Tell me what you saw on your side.
It's awesome. It was super exciting as well, because once it got dark and you fired up that laser, man, it illuminated from our viewpoint the entire woods. Like it was like somebody was having a rave or a party in the woods or something like that. And then it was really fun trying to zero it in. You know, I know Michael was helping you find the balloon, and, you know, there were multiple times where we were able to illuminate the entire balloon. But man, there were those few moments when we got that laser super locked in, where you could actually see the head of the laser in the balloon. And that was really cool. But yeah, like from our standpoint, you know, you're almost 6 miles away and you're illuminated where you're at. And then when you were hitting the balloon, the tree lines behind us were illuminated. So that baby spread out way more than we thought. I'm surprised we didn't have somebody from one of the condos come out and ask us what the heck was going on.
Or the police. And meanwhile, keep in mind, I have Michael the entire time saying, as a Branson bell is floating by, oh man, light that up, man. Surely we can just... He's like the devil on my shoulder. It was so awesome.
That's part of the very first thing when we get there. We're setting up and we've got a deer that just won't leave us alone. So we were joking that it was a 3-letter agency plant that was sent there to keep an eye on this.
I mean, you just can't write this stuff. It's amazing. That's so funny. So walking away from this experiment on your end, and like I said, you've kind of been privy to some of the data that's coming out, which is prior to this conversation, of course, on this episode. But It's flat. It's round.
Yeah, I would say there's a curve to it. It's round. I trust your equations and the way that you did it, and it makes perfect sense to somebody that's not a mathematician by any means. That stuff's way over my head. But
you and me both. I got a what do they call them? I forget the name I gave to him, but it's like it's technical sciencing advisor for the Ryan Files. That's his title. John Jeffords. He's awesome. He's been an engineer for John Deere and Harley Davidson and a number of other different places, but he's awesome. You got to meet him sometime. I'm trying to get him to come down to Branson. He's awesome.
I'd love to. And like, I know we talked about this in the dressing room, but I hope people who are steeped in this conversation have a chance to see what you did, how you did it. And if there is a rebuttal that we're somehow missing out on, I'd love to hear it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like, given what we did, in my mind, the earth is round. But if there's a hole in what we've done, by all means, bring it up. Like, we're not going to be guilty of the ones drawing the line in the sand and saying, this is what it is. What we did, I believe this is what it is. And I also believe that this isn't the argument to be had. I believe it's something bigger, you know?
And you don't want to spend all that money on that laser to only use it once.
Hey,
Let's go.
Truth be told, it's one heck of a cat toy. Isn't that right, Finn? Oh, Lord. Well, man, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much. It's not your average, Wednesday's our day off. It's not your average Wednesday night, getting ate up by mosquitoes, hanging out with a weird deer out of nowhere and putting up screens and walking in the water and trying to track a laser. I mean, it was not normal. So thank you so much for not just being a part of it, helping out, but also not thinking I'm as nutty as probably I am.
It was a beautiful setting amongst friends, doing science, and it was a lot of fun, man. Thank you for inviting.
Sciencing, that's right. Since 2003. We did it, baby. Justin, thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother.
You as well, buddy.
Clint Nievar.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now, the one and only Clint Nievar from the Clint Documents, apparently.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
I had to be like my buddy.
That's so funny. Like, when we first got on this Zoom and I saw that, I was like, oh, that's so Clint, and it's so awesome. My favorite part is the N in Clint.
But did I do something wrong?
Seriously, will you tell me, like, did you, or when you were drawing that out, did you like say, oh, we need a backwards in here?
Yes. I was trying to figure out how a way that I could make, because your A looks really cool in your emblem. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, there's something I got to be able to do with one of my letters. And I was like, oh, I'll just write the N backwards. I literally did that 10 minutes ago.
Dude, I appreciate that. That's, you just made my night, man. That's awesome.
Oh, good. Good. I knew you'd enjoy it.
Hey, during the episode where I have that like 1500s me, and I had so much fun doing that because I was like, and that's so it says the Ryan Files in the old script,
all the old English. Yeah.
That like you see this right here. That's just, I don't know even what that is. I do know what it is, but anyways, it doesn't matter. But I had the alchemical symbol for gold is actually what it is. So that's a little Easter egg, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
To quote Doug Bruin. A little Easter egg in the episode. All right. So listen, man, we went out to Table Rock Lake and we did some sciencing. Did you have a good time?
I had a great time. Had a great time. I loved it. It was really, how many guys get to say that they do an experiment about the fundamental laws of creation, and we got to do that. Yeah, and most guys don't get to do that kind of thing, and I was very privileged and very happy to be a part of it.
Well, for the folks out there who don't know it or didn't hear it earlier, Clint was in charge of the drone And we got some really cool drone shots during that. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it made,
oh man, this is great.
It really made the episode.
Well, you know, I do what I can. Us here at the Clint documents, we really work hard to put out some quality work.
I gotcha. Explain your outfit. You told me after the fact, you're like, it had a logical reason.
It had two logical reasons. One main one. The first being that I had the long material in the back of the neck, so I wouldn't get sunburned, and I wouldn't have a bunch of mosquitoes on the back of the neck distracting me, because I'm going to be looking down at this screen on the remote control. But the main reason I wanted to have a big old bright headdress and bright shirt on was because driving the drone around, I knew at some point the sun's going to go down, and I know that even in broad daylight, sometimes I have that drone flying so far away, I don't really exactly know where it is. And I know it's your drone, and you probably don't want to hear that, but sometimes I don't exactly know where it is. I know what direction it is, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing with it out there. So I need to bring it back to me. And I knew that as the sun was going to go down, it was going to be harder and harder to find me. And so I had that big bright headdress and bright shirt, so I knew as if there was any light at all, I could find me. And it worked, because there was a point that I was out over the lake and it got really dark and the battery was starting to go low, and I was starting to get nervous, and I was like, okay, Clint, it's fine, just find the big bright spot. And so I found the lights kind of where we were, and then I knew exactly where I was, because I could just bring it right to me, because I could see myself easily.
If anybody else would have put that much thought into it, I wouldn't believe them. But I know you and the way your mind works, and you had that thought out. I guarantee you.
Yeah,
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I had found that I'd made it a while back when doing some lawn work out of a shirt that I didn't use, because who wears a shirt that bright? But it was like a neon shirt, and I had cut the back out of it to kind of make a headdress to cover the back of my neck, much for the same thing. And I found it a couple weeks ago, and I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. I was like, this will work perfect for what I want it to work for.
You're something special.
I am very special. Thank you.
No, it's awesome. And for the folks, just so they don't think I'm like crazy lunatic guy, what was my instructions to you with regards to the drone?
Oh, you told me to go nuts. You told me don't be afraid of losing it, like really go for it. And I did. And there were some times I pushed it a little far, even for my, I was pretty nervous about what I was doing. And there was a point that I actually zoomed down at the water to show you how close I was, to prove to you I'm going out on a limb here.
Oh, I saw
the drone. And and I knew you would. And but yeah, I went for it. I was flying in and out of trees, flying real close to the water. There was a boat going by, and I was kind of wondering how close I could get to it, but I decided not to play with other people's instrument, and just your drone. I didn't want to get close to someone else's vehicle. So
speaking of other boats, Michael Junge on Shoreline A, the entire time, the Branson Bell is just, he is just like the devil on my shoulder saying, oh, come on, man, let's put the laser on the Branson Bell. Just wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
I know I was like a big killjoy, because he was just like, oh, come on, man. Come on.
Oh man, there's no point in poking that bear.
No. And I was like, let's just do the experiment. But I felt like such a like goody from, back in the day.
I mean, and that was still the bell. Do you think that was about halfway between us? I mean, even if.
Well, points it was, I mean, because it goes all the way around Crystal Cay and then back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's not the same distance the whole time. Well, I mean, I know at one point it did come between us, and you had to cut it right when it was crossing the path. Yeah. And I was hoping you wouldn't, because I knew, there's a captain on there, they have a job to do. And I'm sure that if they would have seen that, they probably saw it anyway, because it's bright. It's a bright laser. But if it would have come across their where people could see it, they probably would have reported it and would be looking for you, as is their job.
Yeah, and I have no desire to poke that bear, like you said.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely. So, okay, so we've talked a little bit. Tell the story, Clint, about driving to Shoreline B.
Yes.
And the thoughts going through your mind. Now, and for the record, you are very strong in your opinions about certain things, and I sometimes I like to get you riled up, and I like to say, "Oh, Planet X is real," and everything else.
It's not real. It is not real. It's if you want to say there's another planetoid out there, okay, there's not a brown dwarf on the outskirts of the solar system. We can get into this right now if you want, but I don't think that's the point of the video.
We're gonna have you. We're gonna have to have you back for that.
Yes.
No, but seriously, you're very much adamant. Hey, we live on a globe.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't. I've learned, because there's been times in my life that I took other ideas on too quickly and didn't test them and didn't put the time in to make sure that, okay, is this logical? Is this what I should believe? And I've learned from those experiences to just be very slow about taking on new ideas. And it's not that I am not open-minded, except for Planet X. It's not that I am not open-minded about things, but I don't take in, you want to say conspiracies, I don't latch onto them right away. I am open-minded to them, but I really want to make sure I put them to the test of all logic. I want to poke every hole in it that I can, but I also want to do that about stuff I currently believe. I'm okay with that because I know I don't know everything. I'm not supposed to know everything. Only God knows everything. That's not my place, and I don't want it to be my place. My place is to keep learning and be amazed at all the stuff that He knows that I find out. That's my job. So yes, I'm open, but I'm very slow to open the door. So going to the story about driving to Shoreline B, I am methodical in the way I think, like about the headdress I was wearing, about, I made sure and packed this foldable red wagon so I could take all the equipment that I was wanting to take. Your drone, I needed waters, I may need some batteries for other stuff. I brought my Sega Game Gear in case I got bored. But I'm thinking about all this stuff, thinking about how I'm going to set up, and because there's always things that come up that you don't predict. So I'm thinking about all this stuff, and I turned down the last turn to go to that shoreline. And I've never been to this area before, so I'm really thinking about where I'm going. And it crosses my mind, okay, Clint, just so you know, this may not go the way you want it to go. Or not want it to go. This may not go the way you think it's going to go. You're really going to test this. Like Ryan's calculations can be trusted on this, and every logical mechanic that we can think of how to prove this, we've planned it out as best that we know how to do it with the instruments that someone like us can get. So this may not go the way you want. What are you going to do if you think that what we're proving tonight is a flat earth? Are you going to be okay with that? And does it matter if you're okay with it? Because if it is true, you've got to be okay with it because you've seen it now. There was a moment that I got very nervous, but I liked it. It was good, and I'm totally open to that. But I've never been one to automatically assume that it's right because it came out of my brain. And I think more people should be like that. But there was a moment that I was quite nervous driving there, and I actually got the tingles, like in my pit of my stomach. I got butterflies from it because I was fixing to test something very fundamental to my beliefs and what I've been taught and my worldview. So that was the story behind that, is I got real nervous about it.
I understand it. Yeah. And I kind of found myself like, I've done a lot of research on both sides, actually. One side leads to the other. There's compelling arguments out there.
That's because it's a globe.
You're right. But there's some I think a lot of people will look at a flat earther and just be like, oh, dude. But the truth
there
of
is
the matter
compelling evidence.
There is very compelling. Yeah. And it's like, and I kind of admit, I was kind of like that too. Like, oh, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But then I realized I didn't really understand what the theory was and how developed it kind of is.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at it and you're like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But that being said, we've been raised to believe from the moment we were born, we live on a globe. It's hard to break that narrative. And, obviously going into this experiment, if I had to be honest, yeah, I believe it. We live on a globe. But I did not want to approach this project with that belief necessarily guiding, yeah. That's why I was thankful to have Michael on the shoreline. I said, I don't know that he was a flat earther per se.
No, but
there's some moments there where he was like, he was so jacked up. He's like, I guarantee that's the screen underneath it.
No, I know, dude, I know that's the screen. Okay.
It was a mirage under the
Yeah.
I got him on the video and he's like, I guarantee that. I know that's the screen. He's like, and he's like jacked up,
yeah.
And so it's a very interesting thing. Why people get so passionate about this subject is another question, I think, altogether.
Well, it's an opportunity that, if this is proven to be untrue, what else are we being led astray on? But that is a point. There probably is a lot of things we're being led astray on. This might not be one of those things, and probably isn't. And we've proven, I think, to us at least, that it's not. But Michael comes to his conclusions. The thing is, we tested our belief and everything. We found that it was round. There was a time that it was the common belief that the world was flat. And equally shattering to their worldview was the concept that it is a globe. Now, you got to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes or sandals or bare feet, whatever. You've got to be able to look at the world through their eyes. How devastating would it be to find something so fundamental is not true, or even be able to admit that it doesn't make sense, and you've believed something so fervently that really isn't logical at all. That's hard. Yeah, for sure, man. Let me ask you a couple questions. You had a unique perspective being on the drone, maybe even a little bit higher elevated than everybody else above the waterline. Some comments were made from Shoreline B that it was evident that from your perspective on Shoreline B, that my laser, which looked level and or pointed down on my end, appeared to you guys as if I was shooting up in the air. You're shooting way up in the air. It did. Now, going back to that feeling of the pit in my stomach, when you turned the laser on for the first time, we could see it, and it scared me for just a second, because it's just so vastly bright, and we're so far away that of course you could see it. It's hard to get the laser that tight from that far away that you wouldn't be able to see it. So when you turned it on, it made me nervous for a second. But then as it got darker, we could see the beam going way over our heads. And flying the drone, especially flying the drone, because I go up from the ground, I can see your laser, but then there's a point that wow, I really see the laser, and that's all I can see on the drone camera footage. It is blinding the camera even. So it was an obvious, like, no, that's not where the focal point is. It's way up there. And it was exactly where you calculated where the balloon was, about 23 feet. So kudos to you for making that prediction. I wouldn't have been able to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, the math was done, like, I didn't come up with the math, but the bottom line is, like, I wish maybe, and who knows, maybe someday we'll figure something out to make better sense of it. And I think you had a good idea, which I'll talk to you about in a second, but like, we had the 23 feet thing going on with the balloon, the weather balloon. And then, I mean, we tried again and again and again to get below that, to get to that 7.9 whatever feet level on the target screen. So literally, like, just a little over 10 feet. But man, it would just disappear. It disappeared every time, and we could watch it disappear. Yeah, it was like a disappearance. Once in a while, though, if I got even somewhere in that disappearing area, there would be like reflections back up on the trees behind you. And I think that was just bouncing off the water, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But it was that laser, just to speak about the laser for a second, that thing is incredible. That it was lighting up. I don't know if any of the footage shows the trees behind us, but they're way up. They're very tall trees. Yeah. And it was lighting up the entire tree patch behind us with that green light. Now there is a focal point still, but it still was bits of light were spreading at that distance, and it was on those trees. Right. It was really amazing. Yeah, the laser spread was awesome, but I'm so happy that we got that photo of bingoing the target, and I mean, it was just, it's boom, it's right there. And that came from me trying to FaceTime Michael, trying to get him to show you what we were looking at so you could aim it better, and you just happened to ping it right when I was filming that. And so I wish we had a better quality photo of it, but that screenshot was taken from that FaceTime call when I was trying to get you to see what we were looking at. There's a probably 6, 7, 8 different video images of us bingoing the target, but yours just happened to be the one that we caught a frame where it was like right in the center. And we knew at that time where we were at with the laser level and everything, so that's the one we used. But yeah, it's pretty, man, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's it, so I'm glad I brought that high powered flashlight too, because that made it to where you could see what you were trying to aim at a little better too. That it's a Craftsman huge like gun flashlight. It's really stupidly bright. So yeah, and speaking of gear and equipment, there was a very powerful flashlight in the bags. Side pocket once again. Yes, side pocket once again. That nobody seemed to look in, as well as a 4K camera in the other side pocket that I wanted. I wish I would have known. I would have set it up for you. I never got to see the instructions on that because I was dragging my own little red wagon with my game gear and my Dr. Pepper, and I had my own gear that I was worried about. Very important, Dr. Pepper. Yes. To have just a gaming device of some sort. I had to have something. Out in the field. Yeah. And it couldn't be Wi-Fi because it wouldn't be able to get internet probably out there very well anyway. So went old school with the Sega Game Gear. Good choice. It was. Again, well thought out. Well thought out. Yeah. I mean, you guys really do your homework at the Clint documents. Yes, we really do. We really do. Awesome. Well, do you have anything last observations or anything else to say to the fine folks who are checking out this awesome experience? I do wish that we could have, I do wish we could have tested the opposite effect. That I wish that we could have brought the laser up, that once we found out you can ping the balloon, but you can't get to the sheet, you can't get to the target screen. I wish that we could have raised then the laser 23 feet to test the opposite, for you to actually be able to go down and shoot the screen target.
I think that would have just proven the opposite effect, and that would have just given us more of a confirmation that not only could we get to the balloon and couldn't get to the screen, now we can get to both the balloon and the screen. But to do that where you were with the campground, we can't like build a tower, anything there overnight. Like that would have been a very hard thing to construct in that situation. But that was the best situation that we had.
Well, I don't know that you wouldn't have had to go up the 23 feet. I don't think. What we were trying to overcome is the atmospheric refraction, and of course, the temperature and humidity and all that stuff didn't help us. Maybe we go out in the middle of winter and try it again with drier air and whatnot. Maybe we have step ladders where we can mount something, the laser on a ladder and then another ladder to be behind it to control it. But I don't know. Would it be possible to strap the laser to the drone somehow? It's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
it is heavy.
It's like a maglite flashlight. It's really big and heavy.
Yeah. I don't know. That's something to think about.
Yeah.
That would be. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I did find something out, and I'll leave you with this. For not much more money, we could have got a Class 4 laser and probably pop the balloon.
Really? Well, then we really need to be careful about shooting it across the showboat.
Yeah, or something behind it. It was perfect with the way it was set up because there was a tree line behind us. But I was a little worried about that, and I'm thinking, no, maybe that's not the smartest. Now there is a part of me that will always want.
There's a movie called, I think it's called Ghost Ship. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
Where what happens is at the beginning of the movie, and this is gross, and this is where I'm going to geek out. The beginning of the movie, something happens, and this like really strong line, this metal line, rope, whatever, goes like light speed across the whole deck of the ship and like slices all the people in half, except for a little girl who was too short to get cut. That's what I picture with the laser in the showboat. You cutting the showboat in half and it going
oops.
Yeah.
Oops.
That wasn't the Ryan Files. That was the Clint documents. You need to talk to them.
Ryan Files, no. Clint documents. Much Clint documents, yes. He saw a movie.
He would totally do something like that. The N is backwards. Just look at it.
It was like, yes, he saw the ghost ship. He was trying to recreate it. It's Clint documents. Clint documents, not the Ryan Files.
Well, is that so? So you say we don't have to go up the total 23 feet. No. Is it something to where maybe we could build a platform for the back of your truck? Build up, literally put a ladder on the back of your truck, maybe in the truck bed, and climb the ladder.
I don't even think that we'd have to do that. The bottom line is it's doable.
Yeah.
It's just a little logistics. We would have to get away from that point. Once we travel west from that point where we were at, Crystal K comes into play.
Yeah. Okay.
However, there is a gap on the other side of Crystal K to be able to locate you guys as well. It's very, very narrow, but I saw it visually that there would be the possibility. And that shoreline goes, water level, but it comes up. And I would imagine at that point in time, you're 20 some feet above the water line.
All right.
So there is a possibility of doing that.
Okay.
Something to think about for the future.
Yeah. And, just to prove the opposite, I think it would be cool.
But the problem with that is, and not the problem, but the obvious thing is, at that height, I should be able to see the screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We can do it visually.
Well, and that should be pretty easy. We don't even need the balloon or the 14 tanks of helium that you got.
Right. We just need you in your bright outfit.
Yes.
Petting a deer.
You don't need the screen. I'll just stand there with my headdress on.
Yeah, just petting a deer.
Yeah. Oh
I
my
see,
gosh.
I see
deer.
Clint. I see Clint and a deer.
Yeah. He would be there. He would
Yeah.
be there.
Awesome,
That was
man.
awesome.
Well, I appreciate you so much, brother. Thank you so much for joining us and helping out with the experiment. I know that people are going to love you. Is there anywhere that they should go to subscribe to the Clint documents?
We're in the midst of getting our MySpace page up and running. We're hoping to have that up in the next couple months, at least. We have to talk to Justin Timberlake. I think he owns MySpace still, but he sent us a message saying "Cry me a river." So
was it via email or fax?
It was
Telegraph.
Yes, it was.
Awesome.
Oh man, I'm such a nerd.
Yeah, we are. God bless us. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, head of the Clint documents, Clint Nievar.
Yes.
Sean Barker.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joined by the one and only Sean Barker. Sean, thanks for coming on. This started months ago, over 6 months ago, I guess, with episode number 9, when we sat down and we talked about the nature of our Earth. And you brought up some really good biblical points. I kind of brought up more of the science and CIA documents and stuff. And we kind of left that episode saying, why don't we just go out on the lake and test it? And that's where this all started.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, right? Like to finally get out there and see it all play out from back when we had done the first episode, just talking about it. And to be actually out there physically running our own tests and things. Man, it was cool, man. It was a lot of fun. I was stoked, right? Like I was like really like fired up about getting out there and doing it, man. I was so stoked to be out there. I had my own ideas about what was probably gonna go down, but you know, you never know. There's always that little voice in your head, like, what if?
Yeah.
You know, and it did go down pretty much the way I expected. There were some really cool, surprising things to see play out in real time. One was the atmospheric refraction. To visually see that and witness it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Right? The way the atmosphere and everything can work, and how disorienting it can be for people.
Sure.
And it was, you know, because it was one of them things kind of with like, you know, the reference of Chicago city skyline across Lake Michigan. And they would be like, oh, it's just a reflection. There was a part of me that was kind of like, you know what, I'm calling BS on that.
Right.
You know, and then when I seen it real time, I mean, and people have done similar tests, right?
Right.
But I've never seen anybody do a test to that level at that distance.
Right.
You know, I've seen people do a mile, and within a mile, I think you could. The curve would be so little that you could fudge it, right?
Yeah, it can be fudged on those shorter distances. I think you get into a lot of atmospheric refraction issues when you get longer distances.
Yeah.
Unless you're elevated. And even then, you're still going to get it. You know, the plus side of our experiment is that it was a decent distance. The negative side is, in order to even be able to do an experiment, we had to be relatively low, close to the water, 36 inches, 35 inches off the water. And those temperature variances between the water and the atmosphere can cause all this stuff, obviously. So, you know, we just tried to figure out the best that we could do with what we had. You know, and that includes the laser, that includes the level, that includes the lake. I mean, how fortunate is it that we have a lake just outside our, you know,
that large.
Yeah. So
you can even get 5.5 miles of open lake between you. Most lakes aren't big enough for that unless you go to the Great Lakes.
Right. And I mean, it was so interesting looking at Google Earth and just having that that's those two shorelines that jutted out and just skirting by Crystal Cay, which was a blessing, a big blessing, because that really helped us align, give us a where to put the target, basically, where to aim the laser. And there was a point at night when you guys would shine the flashlight on the balloon that we could see it with our naked eye, but it literally looked like just a very dim, distant star. But that was really cool. That was really cool. Again, I wish, knowing the helium thing, I wish we would have had like an 8 or 10, 12-foot balloon. That would have been really cool.
I filled that balloon, and we could have even done bigger than what we did.
Yeah.
I was worried about like overfilling it and it popping or something like that. I mean, I guess I probably could have just went crazy with it and got it but it was still a pretty, like, I would say it was a 3 to 4 foot, circumference on it. I mean, it was a big balloon, man. It was really big.
Right. And we walked it. I mean, the bottom line is we did the experiment. It worked. And so. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there were things, when you go out and you do things, you plan, you go out, and then you're like, oh, we should have. One thing that I would do different for sure is I would have tied off some, because the balloon was well big enough with enough helium, I would have dropped some glow sticks in it.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been a different color from the laser, right? Like if we're going to use a green laser, let's drop like some orange glow sticks inside this balloon so it'll be self-illuminating, that you guys could have seen it. The thought of like, oh, once it gets dark, nobody can see this balloon didn't really cross my mind until we were already out there and hitting it with the flashlight, and I'm standing in 4 foot of water trying to get the flashlight up on it. But I was like, glow sticks would have been great because it would have carried it no problem, right? Because there was so much helium.
And getting tore up by mosquitoes and bugs and everything else.
I didn't.
You didn't at all?
No, I didn't use no bug spray or anything. I mean, me though, like I'm in my element there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I actually fished that bank a lot. I used the Calm Waters Resort boat ramp and fished that bank a lot and stuff. I mean, that's just being out there and like smashing through the trees and rocks and water and that's just, that's my element, man. I'm in my happy spot anyway. Even if we weren't doing an experiment, I was stoked just to be there.
That's cool. The one thing I would change is say, guys, you got to read my order of instructions list, which was so geeky, I know.
I am going to say there was a bit of a disorganization and kind of a rush.
Right. And that's
once we got there. I mean, we did dig through the bags and missed a few things like flashlight, the HD camera. There was a lot of stuff. The
HD camera with night shot.
Yeah. Thank God we did have our phones available these days to shoot video and pictures. And we did have the drone, which took fabulous video, man. Really like episode making video.
Right, man. But it's all good. Here's a funny thing though. Like I wrote those and I was thinking, okay, these guys are going to be pressed for time and I'm going to try to make it as easy as I can, as possible. I was like, fill up the balloon by the car so you don't have to carry all the helium down and different things like that. But it's all good. I mean, listen, the end results are the end results and everything worked out. It was just kind of funny. I was like,
I chucked all 5 of those helium cans down to the shore myself.
At least
on the way up, I put them in the Clint Documents little red wagon to let him pull them back up.
Isn't that hilarious? The Clint Documents. I love it.
Something wrong with that guy.
I love it. So bottom line, couple of questions for you and, just give me your observations. The one thing that stuck out to a lot of people was on your shoreline. I mean, I really wish we would actually someday do it again and I could be on the other shoreline just to observe.
It'd be awesome.
And I think it would be awesome for you guys to be on the other shoreline as well and be able to, deal with the laser side of it. But one of the things that really struck me in the video was how, from your viewpoint, from your vantage point, that laser was shooting up in the air at a significant angle.
Yeah.
From our standpoint, man, it was level or below level at all times, which is amazing.
I know, man. Like, me and you've been planning this and working on this and talking about this for so long. I wish I could have been two people at once, because I wanted to be in both spots, right?
Right.
I wanted to be over there shooting the laser and then seeing everything from your viewpoint, to be able to see that double balloon with the atmospheric refraction that you guys actually thought was the target. Like, I would have liked to have been able to been on your side to see that. But again, I wanted to be there if that laser hit that 10 by 12 target.
Right.
If it would have smacked that target. I told Justin when we got it all set up, right, and it's starting to get dark, and then some of the things that weren't working in the daytime started working very well at night, like the laser level on the white target with the crosshairs. And it didn't show up great when the sun was up, but once that went down, like, man, that target was big and bold and beautiful, man. And I told Justin, there was a moment I was like, if we fire up this laser, man, and it hits that sheet, I'm gonna freak out, right? Like, I'm gonna freak right out, because like you just broke something that's been a major conspiracy theory for like 10 years, right? And if we're even able to touch that sheet, man, something's not right here, right?
Technically, we should have been able to just touch the very top of it, but that would have had to have been, just perfect, almost in a vacuum, without any atmosphere. And I think, like, if you were in a vacuum, that could have happened. But
and a non-reflective surface between the 2 points.
Right. And the laser spread was, even though the main part of the beam was shooting out and we could have bingoed the target screen with the laser diffusion, that's going to be hitting the water, bouncing up, and it just creates confusion.
The laser diffusion actually was smaller than I thought it was going to be at that distance, man. That laser was impressive.
Once we bingoed the target and we actually saw the main part,
the focal point of it, it was maybe 6 inches in diameter. I mean, it was a pretty. I know where you're shooting from, it's this, but at 5.5 miles, it was still a pretty tight. Right.
Well, I'll tell you this. Yeah, for us and our end, and it's so weird. These lasers are so weird because when you shoot them, it's like it looks like it's going forever, and then it just stops. You can shoot it up in the sky, and it looks like it goes and just stops. I don't know why that is. But instead of like just going on forever and disappearing, it always looks like it just stops. It's weird. I don't know why that is
weird. I mean, it might just be it might go further. It's just you've reached your maximum ability to view it, right? Maybe it's just as far as you can see.
It's so weird. And it like when you're shooting it across land, you'll see it and you'll be like, it just stopped there. And then you'll shoot something even further away and you'll be like, oh, it just stopped there. And you point it up in the sky and you'll be like, well, it just stopped. It's weird. I don't know what the science is behind that. Might have to do some
research on that.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. But how it angled up from you guys. I mean, I think just from an observation, not measuring anything, but just from observations alone, I think that really clearly demonstrates the drop off, man.
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't even have to hit anything when you turned it on. That was my answer right there. Yeah. Right. Like as soon as you turned it on, I saw this big, like flood of light, looked like something shooting into the sky. I was like, we could actually pack up and go home right now. Like that's it. Obviously, right. They're on a decline from us, but to see it and understand in your head what was going on was kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting to think that even though we can look across and see where you and Michael are standing at, like you guys are standing off the edge of the earth over there. Like we're here, but you guys are actually like standing over here.
Right.
Like this one. We're up here and you guys are standing actually at an incline. It was kind of a mind screw a little bit in your head to really see how much it actually does curve.
Right. And the observation that you're making is so interesting because it's just the opposite. From our vantage point, you guys were down here and we were up here, you know? So it's
so weird.
It's like, well, I guess your reality is certainly has to do with where you're at compared to everything else, because it can be a different reality in a different place almost, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, to actually see and realize that you guys were standing on a hill, basically, in comparison to us. Well, even though you could look straight across like that, you know, the water's flat. Luckily, we had a pretty calm night, so the water was, other than boat traffic, we had a pretty flat surface on the water. You know, like Table Rock can get insane when it gets windy.
Right.
So we had a very nice flat surface to look across, and man, it was really cool. I was stoked, man. It was one of the cooler things I've done. You know, and so much homework on it, and you work so hard on all the formulas and mathematics to make sure that we got it right.
Yeah.
Really made it feel legit, right? Like
I love doing the math.
Man, it was a legit scientific experiment, no question about it.
I love doing the math in advance and then going out and seeing if our results reflected what the math reflected, and it did, and that was really cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was neat to go out and do it and take the stuff off of paper and put it into real time. It was neat to see. It was crazy, man. I know the people in boats, or the boat traffic must have, like, there were a few boats going by, right?
Right.
And man, we got this big sheet and this red laser and then this big balloon, and people had to be like, what's going on this shoreline? What are these crazy guys doing? Yeah. And then when you fired up that green laser, I was like, oh man, the DNR is gonna come screaming up here in some boats wanting to know what's happening, man. Like, I was waiting for like Fish and Game to come flying out and being like, what are you guys doing?
Right. Yeah. And then you got Michael the whole time telling me, oh, come on, man, put the laser on the Branson bell. Come on, man. And it's so funny. I mean, he wasn't serious. He's just, you know, but it reminded me, you two remind me of each other in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were kind of cut from the same cloth a little bit, me and Michael, obviously. Speaking of which, I'm sporting my Lost Boys hat.
There you go, baby.
And my Bigfoot shirt.
There you go. That's awesome. So in the final analysis, Sean, let's have it. Do we live on a flat Earth or a round Earth?
The Earth is round. I mean, I don't see how people can watch that video and the extent of what we went through and like the formulas and things that you went through to make sure that we were shooting legitimate angles and measurements. We weren't trying to fudge anything. We didn't go in there with any kind of bias, because I think me and you both, I think we were both kind of coming from the same place. I never really believed the Earth is flat. Not really.
Right.
But at the same time, I always thought there was a compelling argument.
Right. Yeah.
And I think NASA's full of crap on 90% of the things they try to tell you. So I'm like, I don't know. I'd rather go check it out. I think the flat Earth people have a legitimate argument. I think there's some very compelling things that they show that makes you second guess, right? And then of course there are things in the Bible that make you feel like, well, maybe it's not what we're being told it is. I think now that a lot of what was in the Bible partially might be lost in translation from the Septuagint to English translation. And I think a lot of it is metaphorically speaking.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
The Navy used to always say, join the Navy, see the world. You get to travel, but it's a figure of speech. You're not actually going to see the entire world in the Navy, all right? It's just a figure of speech, you know? When it says Satan took God up to the mountain to show him all the kingdoms of the earth, it's a figure of speech, you know? Like, oh man, you go into the top of the arch, you can see the whole world from up there.
Right.
You can't. It's a figure of speech. Right. And I think maybe people need to understand that a little bit more and not take it so much at face value that, oh, because it says the face of the earth, it means a flat face like a clock. It obviously doesn't. I mean, it was a pretty painstaking, detailed experiment that we did.
Yeah. Well, the truth of the matter is that moving forward, the goal of this was not to, be like in your face, dude.
No, absolutely not.
None of
absolutely
that.
Not.
And, I know it got a little nerdy, but I know that there's some people out there that if you just, said, hey, this is what we did, it really kept it basic and simple. There'd be people like, well, dude, how do you know? What's your math? And so I did want to show it.
You had to do it as in depth as we could possibly do with what we had at our disposal to do. Yeah. And I think with what we had, like, it was as good of an experiment as anybody could go out there and do, unless like you're running on grants from, a university for hundreds of thousands of dollars to build, scaffolding and massive laser. Like, for what we had to work with and what we had to do, I think it was probably the best experiment and most accurate. I was really impressed. Not only did it turn out to be that the earth was round, but the calculations that NASA provides and that we use are very, very accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very accurate on what the circumference of the earth is. I mean, it's pretty dead on, man. We were pretty dead on using those formulas to figure out the drop and everything. It was pretty as dead on as we could get it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think like the most important thing moving forward is, for me, we can bookshelf this as, knowledge, fact, known. We don't have to get embroiled in the controversy of flat or round. We know, and so let's move forward. But maybe move forward with the thought of if we can prove to ourselves in that short of a time frame, I mean, just kind of like beyond a shadow of a doubt, how obviously round it is, then why is this such a major source of conflict on both sides? Like, round earthers, man, just give it to the flat earthers. Flat earthers are giving it to the round earthers. They might be wrong, but there are some compelling points. But I feel like there's probably something bigger that is being lost because the focus is on round or flat, but that there's actually something bigger that's the actual real truth of something that maybe we just think about in our heads and figure out what that is and try to figure that out next.
Yeah. On to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think a big portion of the controversy about it, well, one, you have, two basic type of people who are going to believe what they're told, and then people who are going to question everything. But also, I think there would be less controversy if there wasn't so much provable, out and out lies, falsified documents, cover up, and just out and out blatant. Like, there's some videos from the space station and stuff where it's just out and out blatant fakery. of gravity and that, you know, where a guy's got a coat hanger in his shirt and this girl's hair is hairsprayed straight up. It's like they're faking some things because NASA has faked so many things and had been caught in so many lies. And I think that's part of the thing with the flat earthers for sure. You have the group that's just going to believe anything they're told. Round earthers, some people, it's just a matter. It's not even that you've been told that. It just seems like a common sense thing, right? Like, why would we know everything else in the solar system literally is round, everything. So why wouldn't the Earth be round like all the other planets? It's under the same effects of gravity as everything. So you have that group, but I think with flat earthers, it's because of the deception of NASA and the government and governments around the world. This isn't limited to the US government. And I believe flat earthers are probably also people who don't believe anything that is going to be the official narrative. They're just, because once you've been lied to so much, like you have zero trust in anything they say. So because NASA's dishonest, the Earth has to be flat.
Right.
Is kind of their take on it. And turns out to me, and I thought maybe the Earth wasn't flat, but maybe there was something different. I thought maybe our calculations would be off because maybe it's bigger.
Yeah.
Than they've said. You know, you've heard about, Admiral Byrd and there being land masses outside of the Antarctic that we don't know about. I'm like, well, what if it's bigger? What if it's a bigger planet than they're actually saying? And we've only covered so much of it. And there's some things going on at these massive poles that's more than what we've seen. But the calculations are correct. The Earth is as big as they said it was. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, just because they have falsified some things and covered up some things, and maybe part of that is disinformation purposes for protection of information. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes
national defense or whatever.
We want our government to be honest with us, but there are justifiable lies that the government has to tell for certain reasons, right? I mean, it really is. As horrible as that seems, not everybody on this planet is a good guy.
Right. But there is a moment where that ability to, lie or not tell the truth or hide the truth or, whatever, I think gets out of hand and it becomes control and it becomes.
Sure. Absolutely.
For example, I don't know. I feel very, very positive that our government has known about aliens for quite some time.
Absolutely.
And we know this to be true only because like the Tic Tac videos were from, earlier in the 2000s and they just got released in 22, I guess, so they've known about those for, well over a decade and then they get leaked. And during the early 2000s, people were still saying, government people were saying, oh, it's nothing. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we know that there is some sort of an active cover up and has been probably for quite some time, even before Roswell. So, but that's the kind of thing right there that I feel like maybe just a little bit more truth. And of course, there is that report that said, hey, you tell people about this, or they're not going to be able to handle it. And I get it, but like, I just feel like little things like that you've been lied to. The pictures of the Earth from NASA from 2002 and 2012 or whatever, that's that one of them's fake, both of them are fake, they're composite, whatever. Right. So, just these little things come into play and they make you go, And and there's a million of those out there. We ought to do an episode sometime about like literally the top 50 conspiracies. And I said it in episode 37, just, last week, that name me a conspiracy that doesn't in some way involve government or religion.
Right.
It's hard. So,
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll tell you what, we got to find the next big one to figure, something that we can test and get out there and do it, because I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. So,
yeah, that was awesome, man. I hope that episode gets a lot of views and starts getting spread around the internet, because it was really a viable, it's a viable piece of information in the whole flat Earth, globe Earth argument. I feel.
Yeah.
I feel we did a great job, all of us, and I think it is pretty beyond a shadow of a doubt proof that we are living on a globe Earth that is the dimensions that NASA has said, and other scientists and stuff have put out the same information to agree with that. It was a lot of fun, man. It was, and just getting all the guys together, right?
Yeah.
And that feeling right before everything went down, that what if kind of thought in the back of your mind was just, it was exciting, right?
Yeah.
It was exciting. It really was. It was fun. I can't wait to do the next thing. I'm always down to be on the Ryan Files and keep going. I think you got a great thing. And I like how the approach to it, how it's not, it's done in a fun way, but in also a serious way. It's an approach that's entertaining and fun, but also, we took that experiment serious. We weren't out there just messing around. Like we were doing something real, but
we were sciencing
fun into it.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to go about it, and the fact that I think that we have a very open mind to go into things, right? Like we're not trying to knock one side or the other. We're just out there trying to find out, right? Just find out.
Yeah.
What's real and what's not, what's going on. And I can't wait to, let's get on something else, man. Let's find out what the next big thing is and get together. And I like the idea of going out again, maybe, and doing that in the wintertime.
And maybe just
nothing else, just see how it affects the results with the atmospheric refraction and things, because people, it's said that there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
In the time of year, so I would be willing to go do it again.
Yeah, bigger balloon with the
glow lights. Yeah,
glow lights and all the things that we wish we would have done better. Let's maybe get a better angle, laser level on my side. Let's get a better setup, maybe. There's all kinds of things that we can do. And why not? It's something we'll plan on then. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And I think it would be fun to switch sides just to be able to catch a science on both sides. Clint brought up something. He wanted to raise it up and see if we were able to tilt down to hit the screen. And there's all kinds of options. So we'll talk about that and get that going. But dude, I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
It was fun.
Couldn't have done it without you, and we had some fun, but we're going to get together on some other stuff here in the future. So I appreciate you.
For sure, man. Definitely. Looking forward to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Man in Black show master, awesome dude, Sean Barker. Thank you for tuning in, folks. How did you enjoy the fellows on my team? Let us know in the comments. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you, my brothers. I could not have done this without you. As always, subscribe to this channel, and if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like. And be sure to check out theryanfiles.com. Stop by our store, pick up a t-shirt or a commemorative mug, and be sure to click that Become an Agent button where you will be forwarded to my Patreon page. Become an agent of the Ryan Files. We can't wait to have you in our community. Stay awesome, my friends. Do something amazing this week for a total stranger. Stay curious out there, folks, and I will see you right here next week on The Ryan Files.
The Ryan Files.